You. You're the person the world needs. Life is changing, and the future is uncertain. You may not know how or why yet, but you know you're here to make a difference. You're not waiting for the universe to give you the answers. You're finding them for yourself. Challenging echoes with evidence. Few people have great ideas. Even fewer make them happen. It takes a dreamer, an explorer, a researcher, a leader, a thinker. It takes someone like you.
Hi everyone, and welcome to UNSW's Year 10 Information Evening, Subject Selection. Before we get started this evening, I would like to acknowledge the Bedegal, Gadigal and Ngunnawal people, who are the traditional custodians of the lands in which UNSW works and teaches on. I would also like to extend that respect to all past, present and emerging elders and any Indigenous, Torres Strait Islander or First Nations people joining us today. My name's Cody Wem. I am the Undergraduate Student Recruitment Manager here at UNSW. Now, this is a long-winded title, but basically it means that I'm here to make sure that all of you have all the information you need to make an informed decision about your university choices. Speaking of university, we have a few new acronyms that are going to help you along the way throughout not only tonight's session, but also throughout your journey into your senior years and to university. So first up, we have UAC, which is the University Admissions Centre. And we have a special guest, Trudy, joining us this evening, who you'll hear from in just a small moment. We have the ATAR, which is the Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank. And then we have LSR, which we use as the lowest selection rank. So the selection rank is your ATAR plus any adjustment factors you get, and the lowest selection rank is what we use to choose students for the university degrees. Now, without any further ado, we will kick off and we have our special guest, Trudy, joining us to explain the HSC subject selection.
Thank you, Cody, and it's really nice to be here today. My name's Trudy Noller and I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at UAC, and tonight we're going to talk about the ATAR and subject selection. For those of you who don't know who UAC is an organisation that looks after applications for university entry into over 28 different institutions across New South Wales and the ACT. We also administer applications for our access schemes, which you'll find out about through your senior years. And of course, the one thing we're known for is the fact that we calculate all New South Wales HSC students' ATAR. So without further ado, let's talk ATAR. Before we talk about calculation, what I want you to understand is the difference between HSC marks and the ATAR. Because once you know there's a difference, you will understand why the ATAR may look different to HSC marks. At the end of year 12, all students will sit the exams. And then after that, NESA, or the New South Wales Education Standards Authority, will report to students the HSC courses they've completed, the HSC mark they have achieved for each course, and of course the performance band that mark aligns to. Now those HSC marks are going to tell you about how well you have performed in each course, whereas UAC will report one number known as the ATAR, and that one number tells you about your overall position amongst all other students in the state. It's about performance versus position. We always talk about it like being in a running race because that's easy to understand, and that is that all year 12 students are in this race, and you yourself may get to the very end of that race doing your best ever performance, and that would be fantastic if that happens. And then, of course, you're standing at the finish line and think, well, I've just done my personal best, but I'm actually still positioned in the middle of the pack. So your performance in the race may look very different to your position in the race. So The only thing that you can control as a student is how well you're going to perform. You can't control your ATAR or your position because you can't control the competition. Now, what is the ATAR? Of course, the Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank is just that. It is a rank, not a mark or a score. It will not define you as a student for the rest of your academic career. It just tells us that at the end of Year 12, here you are positioned for the sole purpose of universities to select students. And that is all it's about. After you get into university, nobody ever asks about it again, so yay. It is, of course, a number between 0 and 99.95, and we only report ATARs of 30 and above. So, how are you eligible to be awarded an ATAR? As I said, you have to, of course, complete your HSC, and when you're, of course, selecting your HSC courses, in Year 11 you must complete 12 units of study. Now, your school will help you through this because they can't, of course, offer every single HSC course. But when it gets to Year 12, some students keep their 12 units, some drop units, some take on further units. But UAC needs 10 units of study to actually calculate an ATAR. So that would be 10 units of board-developed courses, which must include 2 units of English and 4 subject areas. When we do the calculation, of course, as I said, we do need 10 units of study. And when we take those 10 units of study, we're not using the HSC marks that NESA reports to you. We're, of course, using scaled marks. And this is the thing that a lot of people talk about because they talk about taking certain courses that are going to scale them better. But in that case, you're thinking of all those myths that people are talking about. We do, of course, need 10 units of ATAR courses, including 2 units of English, of scaled marks, not HSC marks. So let's talk a little bit about scaling because I know that that's always on the top of Year 10's minds because of all those myths out there. Now, the scaling process is just the first step in the ATAR calculation. If all students in the state did exactly the same HSC courses, we would not need to do this. But we do need to do it because there are so many different patterns of study. Last year, there was 69,000 HSC students and 25,000 different patterns of study. 19,000 patterns of study were unique. So because there are so many different patterns of study, we need to do the scaling process to, of course, have a more even playing field so that no student is either advantaged or disadvantaged because of their course choice. When we, of course, are doing that scaling process, we're not scaling courses, which many students think, because they talk about if they take certain courses, UAC will scale them up or down, but that's incorrect. The scaled mean of a course is telling us about the strength of the competition of the course, and of course, it also talks about the academic ability of students, because that's what we're scaling, the academic ability of students within a course. So, for instance, courses with a high scaled mean is really just telling us that in general, overall, the academic ability of students in the course is high. Where other courses with lower scaled means really just tells us that the academic ability of students in that course varies from high to low. It does not tell you that you cannot achieve a high ATAR that includes a course with a low scaled mean, because you absolutely can. You just need to be a little bit further to the top of the course to have it, of course, included in your calculation. So let me go on to talk about Fred and Laura, and these are 2 students who have completed the HSC, and we can see here that Fred gets marks of 70 for everything and Laura marks of 80. They are only 10 marks difference, but 19 points apart in ATAR. Now, Fred on ATAR day always rings me and says, "Miss, there is something wrong. 61 is not an average of 70. How do we calculate this? What's wrong? There is something that I'm missing." Usually the next sentence that comes out of Fred's mouth is, "I know, you scaled me down because I did visual arts." But that is not the actual story here, because we're not using HSC marks, as I said. We're using scaled marks. And in actual fact, the story behind the ATAR here is not in the HSC marks, but in the percentile column, because this tells us where each student was positioned in their courses. So for instance, a mark of 70 in biology last year placed Fred in the 49th percentile, meaning that 51% of students did better than him. Thinking about the ATAR, remember it's about position. If we look at Laura, on the other hand, a mark of 80 placed her in a much better position, with only 25% of students ahead of her. If we look at English Advanced, a mark of 70 placed Fred in the 8th percentile. Last year, 92% of students got marks better than 70, and Laura, a mark of 80, still positioned her in the bottom half of the cohort. If we have a look at the percentile column for Fred, we can see that in every single course, he is positioned in the lower half of the cohort, therefore his ATAR reflect that. And as you can see, the median ATAR last year was 71.25, and it always sits around that 70. If we even align Fred's HSC marks with the median marks, you can see that his marks lay beneath the middle. So, the moral to this ATAR is, please take courses that you love, that you're going to enjoy and do well in, and of course courses that may set you up for success at university. So that's the ATAR. Let's look a little bit at subject selection for Year 10 students. And of course, when it comes to your subject selection, you need to, of course, work with your school because, as I said before, they can't offer every single course, and there is about 115 of them. But you need to think about which of the HSC courses offered at your school interest you. That's a big thing. Are they ATAR courses? Are they a good foundation for success at uni? And of course, do they satisfy any course prerequisites? Making some decisions going forward, you of course really need to do some research into future careers and relevant courses. And your careers advisor is best placed to help you with that. You also need to consider your abilities and your interests, and of course, understand and check the prerequisites and assume knowledge for any course that you're interested in at university level. And of course, be prepared to study hard. So what next? Of course, in Year 10, as I said, you'll do your subject selection, and for Year 11, you will need to complete at least 12 units of study to satisfy HSC eligibility. In Year 12, keep working hard because that's the best way to get the best marks possible. And of course, you need to consider all the different universities that offer the courses you're interested in. You need your, of course, tax file number and unique student identifier numbers, and you should get them in Year 12 so that you can move forward onto university with those numbers. And of course, applications will open once you're in Year 12, not in Year 11. So that's what's up next for you. Apart from that, please remember that the ATAR, of course, is just one way of getting you into university. If that number doesn't work for you, there are many other options. Choose courses you, of course, like and are good at. Choose courses that will set you up for success once you get to university. And of course, explore all your options. I think that's about it from me. So I'll pass you back to Cody.
Thank you so much, Trudy. That was an incredible quick journey through the ATAR and all the wonderful things that UAC do for students. Now we're going to hear from one of our current students. So Nish is going to take us through her journey to university from Year 10.
Hi everyone, my name's Nish and I'm a 5th year arts law student studying at UNSW. I know most of you are in Year 10 and some of you might even be in Year 11 and 12 and are nearing the end of your high school experience. You're probably wondering what's after high school, and some of you may even be contemplating university. Today I'm here to share my experience from Year 10 up until university and hopefully share some tips and tricks with you along the way. So let's take it back to the beginning. To be honest, I didn't think too much about uni while I was in Year 10, but it's great that you guys all are. You're giving yourself the time to make a conscious decision about what HSC subjects you want to choose and what degree you eventually want to study. As you choose your subjects for Year 11 and 12, you're probably looking into what prerequisite knowledge you require for your dream degree. But fear not, the decision you make in Year 10 doesn't dictate the rest of your university studies. At UNSW, we don't have prerequisites, only assumed knowledge. What this means is we look at your overall selection rank for your dream degree and not your marks in individual subjects. However, having the assumed knowledge is really useful and it will help you in your first year. And it will make it a little bit easier. Especially if you already know what degree you want to do, we encourage you to do those assumed knowledge subjects for your HSC. But don't stress if you don't have the assumed knowledge, because at UNSW, we have heaps of bridging courses on offer to get you back up to speed. We encourage you to take the time in year 10 to figure out what interests you and what you eventually want to carry through into university. For example, I really loved history, which is why I chose modern history as my HSC subject. And I did really well in it, which allowed me to get a high selection rank. Because I really enjoyed it so much in high school, it allowed me to choose it as my major for my arts degree. And if you don't know what you want to study in university, don't worry at all, that's completely fine. We encourage you to come to our Year 10 experience days where we have fun workshops and small talks in all our different subject areas for you to discover what you're interested in. So now we're in year 11 where you've just chosen your HSC subjects. But it doesn't stop there, and there's heaps you can be doing during this time to improve your uni application. For the next 2 years, it's important that you focus not only just on your academic studies, but also building your extracurriculars and your experiences outside of high school. Unis don't only just look at your academic merit, they're also interested to see how well-rounded you are. We want to know who you are, what your hobbies, passions, and interests are. Especially here at UNSW, you're not just doing a degree. A big part of our uni is being involved in student life. For example, when I was in high school, I was a prefect, leading the school social justice club, playing netball and dancing. I was also able to carry these through into university by joining ARC's dance classes and volunteer programs. This is also a good time to be looking into scholarships, and if you're looking to move away from home, then accommodation on campus. And now we're in year 12, where you've just heard back from our friends at UAC and you're looking to put in your university preferences. Honestly, this can be quite a stressful time, but a key piece of advice that I would give myself is to not put too much pressure on yourself into getting into your dream degree. Here at UNSW, we have heaps of options to boost your options to getting into your dream degree. This can include extra admission schemes, adjustment factors, which are points that are added onto your ATAR for the HSC subjects that you choose and for your extracurriculars. And once you're here, we also have internal program transfer, which means if you don't like the degree that you chose in your first year, you can move to a different degree in your second year. This is also a good time to come check us out at UNSW Open Day. You don't have to be in year 12 to join, and we encourage you to come as early as possible to see what UNSW has to offer. Now you've made it into uni. I know uni can seem like a scary, unknown place, but I want to share some exciting aspects of uni life that you can look forward to. Firstly, you don't have classes 9 to 3 every day, which means you get to choose a timetable that works around you. This gives you the flexibility to work part-time, make friends, and even if you're like me, sneak a bit of a sleep in. Another thing is at UNSW, we have heaps of opportunities and societies for you to get involved in. From Food Lovers Society, to Debating Society, to even K-pop Society. There's something for everyone. This is a good way to explore current interests, create new ones, and make lifelong friends. We also have extremely lovely teaching and support staff who are more than happy to help if you have any questions. Finally, uni is a great way to gain some independence and learn more about yourself. Thanks so much for joining me on our speedy trip from year 10 to uni. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our future student advisors. We hope you enjoyed the information session, and we can't wait to see you on campus soon at our Year 10 Experience Days and Open Day.
Thanks so much for that whirlwind tour, Nish. We hope you learned a little bit about Nish's journey and what it's like, or what it's going to be like for the next few years while you're in high school. Now, I'm going to talk you through a little bit about subject selection and UNSW specifically. So, We at UNSW don't have prerequisites, we have assumed knowledge. And this means that we'll begin teaching you on your first day of study at university, assuming that you have studied that certain subject. So, for example, advanced mathematics is assumed knowledge of the Bachelor of Commerce. So if you're taking a mathematics course, you'll be assumed that you have done all of that study in your HSC. However, if you haven't, that's okay. It is not going to prevent you from studying the Bachelor of Commerce if you haven't done advanced maths. You can still receive an offer from UNSW because it's not a prerequisite, it's only assumed. We do have loads of support available though, so we have bridging courses in mathematics, physics and chemistry for students to take to reach that level of assumed knowledge in high school. So our UNSW undergraduate guide will list all of the assumed knowledge that is required for each degree. Another thing, you can make sure that you have all of the assumed knowledge by taking those subjects in year 11 and 12, by choosing them to study. Sometimes though, things don't always go to plan and you make different decisions along the way and you don't have those courses, and that's okay at UNSW. Sometimes students decide to not even take the bridging course and tap into our amazing support services within the university, get a peer mentor, get a tutor, and that helps them through their studies anyway. So, reiterating what Trudy said earlier about the HSC course structure. So all courses have a unit value for the HSC. It's kind of similar to university as well. So you'll get used to that concept now and that'll take you right through. So university courses have a unit value, so do the HSC. And most courses are 2 units, which equate to about 120 hours of study and a HSC result of 100. For example, on advanced maths again, that is a 2-unit course. You're expected to study 120 hours. Some courses are 1 unit, and that would be equivalent to 60 hours of study and a HSC result out of 50. So that is courses such as Extension English or Extension Maths. So in year 11, you are to take a minimum of 12 units, and in year 12, a minimum of 10 units. So that means you can take more courses and then decide if you want to keep them all, or you can decide to drop one and free yourself up a little bit. For the HSC requirements, both year 11 and 12 patterns of study must include at least 6 units of board-developed courses and 4 subjects for different kinds of subjects. Let me explain this using an example. So advanced English might be 2 units of English, then you take on another unit of English for Extension 1, and then another unit of English for Extension 2. And that means you have 4 units all just in English that you are taking that need to make up your 10 unit courses. So that means you need to take another 3 different subjects to make up your HSC. So 3 of these courses need a unit value of 2 or greater, so you can't just be taking those extension courses. And then of course we need to have 2 units of English for everybody. Now, if you are absolutely passionate about science, you want to take every single science you can, well, you can only take a maximum of 6 units of science in the year 11 pattern of study, or a maximum of 7 units of science for year 12. Now, some courses have certain rules and prerequisites to them, and you can find out more on the NESA website, which is listed below. So, what are the different kinds of HSC courses? So, there are 2 main types of courses. Some are board-developed courses and some are board-endorsed courses. So, the board-developed courses are developed by a standard curriculum that is made up by NESA. So that means that they have developed a course, and if you are going to one high school and your friend is going to a different high school but studying the same subject, that means that you're going to be doing the same work and sitting the same HSC examination. So they may be included in the calculation of a student's ATAR. But there can include some courses, vocational education training, and some of those are included in your ATAR calculation if they have an HSC examination. So board endorsed courses, that is no HSC examination, they only have a school-based assessment. And so that means the board of NESA has endorsed the course, but they haven't necessarily created a curriculum across the whole of the state. So these are not included in a calculation of a student's ATAR. And that does include some of those VET courses I mentioned before. So how do your HSC marks work? So your HSC mark as a total is looking at your internal assessments. So those are all of your assessments you complete throughout Year 12. Your school will then report that into NESA, who then adds it to your external examination mark. So all of your HSC exams, any major work that you do as part of those exams, all encompass that external examination mark. Then that HSC reported mark gets sent over to UAC and they calculate your ATAR. So for satisfactory completion of a course, students must follow that course developed or endorsed by NESA. You really need to apply yourselves with diligence and sustained effort to complete all of the tasks and experiences provided in the course by the school. So that means doing all of your assessment tasks, doing all of the labs or other experiments that are needed in those science courses, and then achieve some or all of the course outcomes. So those VET board developed courses require students to complete a mandatory work placement. So watch out for those courses as well if you're picking them, and make sure that you know what are the requirements for those specific courses. So students need to demonstrate a minimum standard of literacy and numeracy to be eligible for a higher school certificate, the HSC. So you'll be passing online tests of basic literacy and numeracy skills. They are available in Year 10, 11 and 12 and after the HSC as well. So what are the tests? So for reading, there are 45 multiple choice computer adaptive questions. It's about 45 minutes. For numeracy, there's also 45 multiple choice questions, again for 45 minutes. And then writing, so you'll have to answer one question out of a choice of 2 different prompts. But you can refer to the NESA website for more information, and they also have a plethora of resources available for parents, students, and schools. Of course, a new concept, maybe not a new concept with all of this AI development that's happening at the moment, is a concept of all my own work. So it's a mandatory program designed to help HSC students follow principles and practices of good scholarship. So during your HSC and then all the way through to university, you need to make sure that you're doing all of your own work. I can explain this using an example. So you have an English project that you're studying for, and you want to do some research into some ideas for your English project. Now, you might have a look at 5 different websites and get some ideas from all of them. Now, this might be your own work when you put it into your own words, but you do need to acknowledge those sources. So you do need to say, I looked at all of these websites and formed my ideas using the basis of these other ideas that I've seen online. So that is one of the modules for that HSC or my own work. Another one is looking at plagiarism. So that's whether you've copied directly from a source to another, and universities also will catch you out on this one. Also copyright and working with others. So looking at all of these different elements for this mandatory program. So my final pieces of advice, some key considerations for course selection. So also reiterating on what Trudy was saying earlier, let's look at your abilities. See where you're really, really strong in and you're performing really well in. Let's look at your interests and motivations. So where you're more interested in is likely to be where you want to put more effort into studying. So that means if you're really enjoying music and you think you're going to do really, really well in it, then that's probably a good course to pick for you, because you're going to be interested and motivated to study more and harder for that course. as opposed to letting dad decide that you should do mathematics, like I did. So let's look at your career aspirations and needs. So, do you need to do this course? Are you going to be using any of these skills in your future career? Let's also look at the syllabus requirements. So are there practical or major work components? So visual arts, design and technology, music, all have that practical work component, which are often due earlier, and then you do a smaller exam. So have a look at how many of these you'll be doing at once and kind of work out whether you can handle that amount of stress for doing those major works all in the one go. Then looking at the subject combination. So are you spreading yourself nice and wide? Do you have a nice breadth of subjects? Or are you focusing on one area? And that might be okay because you might be really, really great at science and maths and engineering type courses. Or you might want a nice balance of courses. So you might want to do economics and art and English advanced. So then you also need to look at your other commitments. So how many hours outside of school are you going to be able to dedicate to a course that might be a little bit out of your reach, a little bit hard at the moment? Are you going to be able to put in all the effort that you know will take to get a good mark in that course? So really taking all of these considerations into account when you're picking your subjects is going to be really, really helpful in the coming months. So I'm going to pass over now to my colleague Yusuf, who is going to have a chat to one of our current students and answer all the questions that you want to answer.
Thanks, Cody. My name's Yusuf. Similarly to Cody, I work in the Future Students Office, and as a team, we're working to ensure all you students make an informed decision when it comes to your study choices. With us today, I have Lizzie, and we're going to talk a little bit about her HSC subjects and her process from Year 10 to Year 12 and her inspirations. Lizzie, did you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Of course, thanks, Yusuf. So my name is Lizzie. I'm a current student here at UNSW. At the moment, I am in my 5th and final year studying a Bachelor of Law, and I combine that with a Bachelor of Science, majoring in biotechnology.
Amazing. Thanks, Lizzie. Before we get into your HSC and the subjects you chose, let's take it back to when you were a little bit younger and when you were growing up. What was the dream of 15-year-old Lizzie?
Wow, 15-year-old Lizzie had lots of ideas going on in her head. I really didn't have one specific dream job that I wanted. I changed a lot throughout growing up. At some points, I wanted to be a salesperson. At some points, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a policymaker, an inventor. There was honestly a lot going on in my brain, but I knew that what I wanted to do was to continue learning and continue furthering my education with that lifelong mindset of learning. And I also knew that I wanted to go into an industry where I could help others and really use my practical skills and engage with other people.
Awesome. It's really hard to nitpick something at that age. Now to Year 10, and trying to make those various dreams come true. Can you give us a quick overview of what subjects you studied in Year 11 and Year 12?
Of course. So like I was saying, I actually tried to keep things quite broad because I had many areas that I was interested in. So I studied Advanced English, I studied Advanced Maths and Extension 1 Maths. I studied biology, chemistry, economics, and design and technology. So really dipping my foot into the more sciencey and maths-based subjects, and as well a creative subject, which I personally really enjoyed.
Awesome. There's a great broad range of subjects you studied there. Could you take us through your decision-making process and why you chose those subjects more specifically?
Absolutely. So I'll start with why I chose English and maths. I think those two subjects were very foundational, and I think that at that stage, I definitely thought it would be something that would set me up for university and really ground me with some key foundational skills in whichever degree I chose to undertake. So I knew that doing maths and English would be quite important as a stepping stone. I also really wanted to challenge myself, and I thought that I was quite good with numbers, so I did choose to take on Extension 1 Maths as well, and I really enjoyed that throughout Year 11 and 12. In my science subject, I also really enjoyed the hands-on experience of the lab courses and practical experiments and hypothesizing and really searching for answers. So I thought that choosing both biology and chemistry, so 2 science subjects, would really further my interest and passion in experimentation, tapping into the I want to be a bit more of a sciencey student type mindset. So definitely enjoyed those 2 subjects. Economics was something that was a bit out of my comfort zone, but definitely something that kept me on my toes. It really made sure that I was up to date with what was going on in the economy around us, looking into how policies were made, which actually really helped out in terms of what I did choose to study, which is in my law degree. And then, of course, design and technology. This was a really big passion project for me. I was really happy that I was able to take a creative subject and definitely being able to use both my time management and organizational skills to work on a major work and have my creativity and passion really shine through during that subject.
Awesome. Such a great range. A jack of all trades, I must say. So what was your favourite subject out of those and why?
My favorite subject was actually design and technology because it allowed me to apply my creative skills, like I was saying before, but also time management, organization, but also because I was able to pursue a major work. And I'm someone who, a little bit of a control freak, so I did like to, take control of where my project was going and really research into areas where my interest lied. So I actually ended up combining a therapeutic product to help people who had juvenile arthritis. So a little bit of a science-based aspect of it too, but also designing a garment collection which had this heating and cooling technology worked into it. So a bit of design and textiles, but also combining my passions for science in my own independent project.
How interesting. Let's move away from formal studies. Let's talk a little bit about extracurriculars. What type of extracurricular activities did you do? What were you involved in? And what did you have to stop for the HSC?
I did like to get involved and stay really involved in all my extracurricular activities. I maintained my sport, so I did netball and badminton. I trained twice a week and played on a Saturday, so it was a great way to keep a healthy balance between staying active and getting, my mind flowing as well as academic studies on the side. I also did debating, so that kept me on my toes as well in terms of working in a team, formulating arguments. And I also was working towards my Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award throughout year 11 and 12. So it gave me a goal that wasn't necessarily academic or studies related, but something that I really wanted to pursue for my own personal motivation. And so that allowed me to engage in sport and service and physical activity. So it was a good balance throughout.
Awesome. Extracurriculars are very, very important during year 11 and 12. Make sure you balance your studies with some extracurriculars. You can get awarded in that HSC process to gain some adjustment factors through your extracurriculars. Thanks, Lizzie. And just to finish off, if you had one piece of advice to your year 10 self, what would that be?
My one piece of advice would definitely be to choose subjects that you are interested in and passionate about. It doesn't necessarily need to be, your future dream job related subject, but if you do know what your dream job is, go ahead by all means. But for me, choosing a range of subjects which I really did care about and am passionate about was something that I would definitely recommend to you as year 10 students and going through that process.
Amazing. Thanks, Lizzie. I hope you all gained some great insights from that conversation. I'm going to hand it back over to Cody, who's going to open it up for questions.
Awesome. So we are joining you live, all of us here on the panel. So welcome back to Trudy. And thank you to Lizzie and Yusuf for taking us through this whirlwind tour of your studies. Trudy, let's take this first one to you. Is there a conversion process from IB scores to ATAR? If so, what is the process for this calculation?
There is a process. When you get your IB at the end of course, your year 12 year, UAC will certainly calculate what we call now the IBAS. We're getting finer grained detail from the IBO to be able to put students in the right area, and then that particular IBAS will relate to a certain ATAR. So we will certainly contact you at the time of the IB results being released with that IBAS, and you'll be able to find the conversion table on our UAC website. You can look at those now if you wish to, of course.
Fantastic. I might ask our friends who are in the chat to have a look and see if they can pop that link in for everyone at home. Next up, I might go to Lizzie for this one because it relates to law. What subjects would you recommend people study to prepare them to study law?
That's a great question. I think there's a range of subjects that might be useful and interesting to study for law. Of course, studying English is quite important because being able to formulate writing your arguments and being able to write different paragraphs on different things and doing research is really important. But also at the end of the day, it is about doing things that you are also good at, because it can be a difficult process, but it is something that you want to be focusing on, something that you are interested in yourself. Also to note, there isn't any, like what Cody was saying before, there are no prerequisites at UNSW. So for example, I didn't study legal studies at school, and that was completely okay because you can still get into the degree of your choice even without that background.
Yeah, great. And could you tell us a little bit more about getting into law? So the question says what ATAR is required, but I know that there's a little bit more required to getting into law at UNSW.
Absolutely. So at UNSW, we have the Law Admissions Test, which is known as a LAT for short. And this is an additional essay-based examination that you can take in either Year 11 or Year 12, and your best mark will count. And this is actually assessed alongside your ATAR. So for me, knowing that at UNSW there was the LAT as well as the ATAR was a huge relief, because it took off a lot of the pressure of trying to get that ATAR and trying to get in through that way. So instead of that, I was also able to study for the LAT. And that meant just being able to feel comfortable that it wasn't all about getting the perfect and the best mark, but it was about essay-based skills, argument-forming skills, and other factors, not just your final ATAR in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that it's adding on to your ATAR. So we're looking at those critical thinking skills alongside your ATAR. So, you know, we really want to make sure that students coming to UNSW are going to feel that same passion that we do for social justice. I might go to Yusuf for this one. What subjects would you recommend for someone who's looking to study environmental science at university? Is it a good idea to take a creative subject to balance the workload, or stick to STEM subjects to get as much prior knowledge?
That's a great question. So as mentioned earlier in the presentation, I would suggest things that you're passionate about and what you do well in. Yes, STEM subjects will help you, but don't overload yourself with just STEM subjects. Get a bit broad, similar to what Lizzie did during her Year 11 and 12. Add that design subject and make it broad, and just do what you're good at and what you're interested in.
Excellent. That is solid advice, I think. Happy to iterate that. I'm going to come back to Lizzie, because I heard you mention before you actually did 12 units for year 13. 13 units for year 12. So do you think it was better to do more units, or do you wish you'd kind of dropped down and done maybe 10 or 11?
That's such a great question. So when I was in year 10, like I was saying before, I wanted to do everything and I didn't know what specifically I liked. So I thought it was a great idea to jump into the subject selection process going a bit more rather than a little bit less, because the good thing is you can drop down if you would like, but it might be a bit more difficult if you're already midway through year 11 and you think that you want to add on a completely different subject. So for me, I was glad that I kept 13 definitely in the beginning of the process. And when I was in year 11, towards the end of year 11, I was thinking to myself, do I want to drop something? Maybe my time can be used elsewhere. However, because I was so interested in everything that I did, I was thinking, no, I'm just going to stick it through. And it's good to kind of have that buffer in case, because like Trudy was mentioning, only your 10 units get used for your ATAR. So it was nice for me knowing that I could have a bit of a buffer, so only my 10 best units were used to calculate my ATAR. So in the end, no regrets, although it was definitely in the back of my mind thinking like, oh, I'm doing 3 extra units. Maybe, just maybe I should drop down, but no regrets.
Thank you for that good advice, Lizzie. I did 13 units in year 11, and then I thought, okay, this is too many for me, and I dropped down to 11. But again, having that kind of 1 unit buffer was nice, saved me from a terrible maths mark. The next question I'm going to go to Trudy. There's a myth going around. The question isn't about the myth, but I know it's a myth. Can you tell us more about school scaling? So if I go to a certain school, am I going to be affected by the rest of my school's marks?
Okay, so when it comes to the calculation of the ATAR, the school you attend has nothing to do with it. Okay, when we do the calculation, it's just purely the moderated assessment mark and of course the raw exam mark that we use. Nothing to do with school at all. We don't scale schools. Nobody scales schools. The only thing that happens at the school level is the moderation of assessment marks, and that's done by NESA. So if you've not heard of moderation before, moderation is a process that NESA puts in place, and what schools do is report to NESA the rank of each student in the school, in each course. Their assessment marks. Once they get, of course, the exam marks, they look at the school's assessment marks, the exam marks. If the assessment marks are all high, but the exam marks are all low, they'll moderate those assessment marks downwards to meet that exam mark. Now, how can they do that? The exam mark is, or the exam is the common assessment task, all right? So every single student does it. So therefore, they're sort of counting on that to make decisions about these assessment marks. So if the school gave low assessment marks but high exam marks came back, they would moderate upwards. Now they do this process to take away the difference between schools, because some schools may have harder assessments or mark differently or so forth. So they do that. We scale, of course, as I said before, to take away the difference between patterns of study, so that overall everyone is treated as fairly as possible. So that everyone is having a decent, decent chance of doing whatever it is that they want to do when they finish school. So no scaling of schools.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that.
That's okay.
And I hope that answered some questions that are popping up in the chat. Let's go back to Yusuf on this one. Yusuf's speciality is engineering, so we'll throw to him on this one. I also love the wording on this question, and I'm gonna go back to my 15-year-old self and put myself in their shoes. So, what's the deal with maths? Do I have to study it if I'm gonna be an engineer?
Great question. Maths will definitely help you become an engineer, but as mentioned in the presentation, it is just assumed knowledge to gain entry in UNSW, so you don't need to study maths. We will assume that you've learnt a certain aspect or certain amount of math. You can bridge it through a bridging course. Math is an integral part of engineering, so I highly recommend taking maths. That being said, it isn't required, and if you're not planning to do it, or if it's not one of your strengths, it isn't the end of the world. There is a lot of support available on campus to bridge that knowledge gap.
I think that answers it. Yeah, we have actually an awesome tool online, so you can see which level of maths you studied and which kind of bridging course that you can take in order to bridge the gap for whatever level of maths you need to take as part of your science or engineering degree, for example. I might actually take the next question. What is the ATAR required to get into physiotherapy? Now, this is a brand new degree as of this year. Our first cohort of students have just started, and from what I can hear, they are loving it. So it's the only program in Australia that is combining exercise science, exercise physiology, and physiotherapy. And for that reason, it is a very, very competitive ATAR. So this year, the lowest selection rank that we took was 98, and I do foresee that going in an upward direction in the coming years as we make sure that the course is being taught really, really well. All of our placements are well filled and we're not over-enrolling the course. So we just want to make sure that the standard of teaching is really, really strong throughout the course and not overfilling it to a level that we can't teach to the same high standard too. It is, of course, an incredible program, so strive high, choose the subjects that you want to do, and you will get there. Let's go to Trudy for this one. Are internal assessments the same across different schools?
That would be something you'd have to ask Nessa. However, my understanding is that they can be slightly different. They all have to teach to a certain curriculum, but they may set, of course, different assessment tasks depending on the school that they attend. Yeah. But yeah, that would really be a Nessa thing. If you contact them, they'll be able to help you with that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
A lot of information is available on their website, which is super helpful.
Absolutely helpful. And they've got a fantastic video on their moderation process if you're interested.
Yeah, great. Let's go to Lizzie for this one. Could you explain the difference between a selection rank and an ATAR?
Great question, and thanks for asking. So there is a difference between the ATAR and the selection rank. So like Trudy was explaining earlier in the presentation, the ATAR is the tertiary admissions rank that you get. So this is based on how you rank amongst other students who are also sitting the HSC. And your lowest selection rank is the ATAR plus any adjustment factors that you might be eligible for. So this is often higher than the ATAR if you do get adjustment factors. And this is what universities might use to help decide whether you do get an offer for a certain course.
Good explanation, Lizzie. Let's stay with you for the next one, actually. Was it hard for you to choose your subjects for year 11 and 12 because your interests were so broad?
Yeah, I would say it was a difficult process, but it was nice to be able to talk with my other friends and my family about their recommendations and suggestions. All those different ideas helped me make the most informed decision. So even speaking with teachers about where they thought my strengths lied. So even though it was a little bit difficult, I think there's lots of support out there to help choose subjects for you. And even for me, doing a bit of self-reflection is a great way of determining where your skills lie and also where your interests are. So for me, deciding on taking design and technology, for example, knowing that there was a major work to do, I had to think, okay, well, will I have enough time? Will I be motivated to keep working on one project for a whole year? And even subjects like biology and chemistry, knowing that there are both practical and theory components, so speaking with my science teachers and asking them about whether they think, this is the kind of right direction to move into. So although it can be a difficult decision to make, I think with the help of family, friends, your teachers, but also a bit of self-reflection, I think that the process is definitely, you can get through it and it all will work out in the end.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. Let's go back to Trudy for this one. I'm a parent from Queensland. Do you use the same ATAR scores in all Australian states?
Absolutely. So whatever ATAR you get in another state will be equivalent to an ATAR here in New South Wales or anywhere around the country. That's why it's called the Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, if we're looking at, say, applying interstate, we in New South Wales and ACT have UAC,
Correct.
But in Queensland they have...
VTAC. No, QTAC.
QTAC, yes. And then Victoria has
VTAC.
VTAC, and then South Australia has SATAC.
SATAC.
So they're
Correct.
all very similar, just for those different states and territories.
And each admission centre calculates the ATAR for their state, and we share all that information. So if we've got students applying interstate, like from interstate to here at the wonderful New South Wales University, then their ATAR will be given to UAC for us to use when it comes to selecting students.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Yusuf here. What's your advice on whether this student should choose subjects that they're good at or relevant to their dream degree?
Oh, great question. I would say a mixture of both. So you need to choose subjects that you're good at, that you will score well in, but you also need to choose subjects that will help you in your career and also help you in your studies at university. Look into the UAC Year 10 Subject Selection Guide, for example, our undergraduate guides as well. They have a list of subjects that we recommend you to study for the degree you're interested in. Pick a few of those. You don't need to study all of them, maybe one or two that interest you the most. Combine that with something that may be related to a hobby of yours, say visual arts or design and technology. Excel in all of them and get a great ATAR.
Yeah.
Great. We have a lot of questions coming through about pathways to medicine. So I can cover this nice and quick. Medicine is an extremely popular option here at UNSW. We do offer a 6-year undergraduate program. So certain pathways, again, I want to reiterate, we don't have any prerequisites, and that is including for our medicine program. So you don't have to study any subject, and the only assumed knowledge we have is actually English, because we really want students to be able to advanced English, because we really want students to be able to communicate all of their medical knowledge in a really strong way to their patients. But in terms of pathways, we have our rural entry scheme. So those students in a rural area, we have the gateway admissions pathway. So students who are living in a low SES area by their postcode and address, they can apply through that gateway pathway. We also have other options such as our lateral entry scheme. So if you want to start in medical science and then transfer into the medicine program, a reminder that you do need to sit the UCAT ANZ for our entry into medicine, and that has to be done in year 12 or the last year that you're applying getting into medicine. So the year before you're applying, in that same year, you do need to sit the UCAT. So it's only valid for that 1 year. If you miss out on the first year and want to try again, you do have to sit the UCAT ANZ yet again. So we get your ATAR and your UCAT results, combine those and rank all of the students, and then we issue interviews to our top ranked students. Generally, we get about 4,000 applications a year for only 200 places. So it is a very, very competitive process, but a really great and rewarding program. So if you are thinking about medicine and you are in year 10, it's a great opportunity for you now to study really hard, do some research into all institutions across Australia that do medicine, because if you are passionate, all the programs are absolutely incredible. I, of course, think ours is the best, but I think it's worth doing some research into all of the different programs and striving high, because if you are passionate about medicine, it's not kind of an option of if, it's a matter of when. So make sure that you are just applying yourselves, doing all of the subjects that you really are passionate about, and maximizing your ATAR and selection rank. So that about wraps us up, but I am going to throw everyone one last question. Lizzie has answered this already, but Yusuf, if you had one piece of advice for your year 10 self.
I would shortlist the things I'm interested in, research the subjects that are required, reflect on subjects that I like and that I think I'll perform well in, and choose a combination of things that interest me, but also things that will fare well me better in university.
Great. Trudy.
Wow, this is a really tough question. I think my year 10 self, have confidence with your decisions and really just think about where your passions lie. It's always very hard in year 10 because there's so many other things going on. But yes, have confidence in, of course, the decisions you make. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to university entry, if for whatever reason you've just changed, everything's changed, you've still got options.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there are many options.
For sure. And I think having the flexibility here at UNSW, given that we don't have prerequisites and we just have that assumed knowledge, kind of takes the pressure off you now at this point to have to pick subjects knowing what you want to do. But even beyond that, we have, internal program transfer. So if you are making a decision and decide that you don't like it, that's okay too. We reserve 100 places every year for students to pick up and add law as a double degree. So there's all these different pathways and options for you. So really choose what you're passionate about, do what you love, and good luck for your year 10 studies and choosing those subjects coming up. Thank you to all of my wonderful panel members today. Thank you for coming along and sharing your knowledge and wisdom and personal experiences with all of us. I hope that you all learnt a thing or two about your subject selection and about us here at UNSW. We will be sending a recording out. We do have another one of these nights, so if you missed anything and wanted to join us for round 2, same thing again. Or if you had anyone who you wanted to pass this on to because you think they would benefit from it, we will be here again on Tuesday the 23rd of May. But following that event, we'll be sending a recording out to those who registered for the event. And you can, of course, find us on YouTube the week following that event. So thank you for joining us tonight. And if you have any more questions, as Nishanka said, you can connect with us by reaching out to our future student advisors on the contact details below. We have email, phone, and then of course you can come and visit us for open day. So an amazing way to get involved in the university community. Come along, you don't have to be in year 11 or 12. Come and ask your questions, do some experiments, see what university life is like, get some free food, always a great draw card there. But thanks for joining us.